Prophet Muhammad is an influential figure in world history. As the founder of Islam, he has touched the lives of 1.5 billion Muslims around the world as the last Abrahamic prophet. Today, we'll try to give a historical account of his life, the first stage in the meteoric rise of Islam. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more sips of fascinating history. Muhammad's life prior to his prophethood is marked by several significant events that shaped his character and prepared him for the responsibilities that would come later. Sometime around 570 CE, Muhammad was born in Mecca, a thriving city and a major religious center in the Arabian Peninsula. He belonged to a Quraysh tribe that ruled the city and looked after the KAABA, a sacred shrine that attracted pilgrims from across the region. After the early death of his parents, he was brought up by his uncle, Abu Talib, who was a respected merchant. As a young man, Muhammad began accompanying his uncle on trading journeys, gaining experience in the world of commerce and with the different cultures of Arabia. He earned the nickname Al-Amin, which means the trustworthy, due to his impeccable character and fair dealings. As he grew older, Muhammad increasingly became dissatisfied with the polytheistic religious practices of his people. He began to withdraw from the bustling city life to seek solitude and contemplation in the mountains surrounding Mecca. He frequently retreated to the cave of Hira to meditate and pray. It was here when Muhammad was 40 that he experienced a divine revelation, marking the beginning of his prophetic mission. It is said that Jibril, the angel Gabriel, commanded him to read, but Muhammad, who was illiterate, replied that he could not. The angel insisted, and eventually the first verses of the Quran were revealed to him. This event marks the beginning of Muhammad's prophethood. These revelations would later be compiled into the Islamic holy book, the Quran. In due time, the now prophet's teachings would come to attract many followers. But Muhammad's growing prominence posed a threat to the status quo, and he faced opposition from Mecca's powerful tribal leaders who saw his message as a threat to their social and economic status, as well as their religious traditions. In 622 CE, after facing persecution, Muhammad and his followers migrated to the city of Medina in an event known as the Hijra. This event also marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar. The early Muslim community in Medina was not only a religious one but also a political entity. The city was made up of various tribes, and Muhammad was chosen as their leader. He established a constitution known as the Constitution of Medina, which outlined the rights and responsibilities of its members. Thus, Medina became the first capital of Islam. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more sips of fascinating history. In Medina, the Muslim community faced external threats from the Meccans and other tribes who saw the growing power of Islam as a challenge. The Muslims themselves also needed to secure resources for their growing community. Tensions between the two groups soon escalated. So when Muhammad learned that a wealthy Meccan caravan led by Abu Sufyan was returning from Syria, he saw an opportunity to strike a blow against the Meccans and acquire valuable resources. The Muslim forces, numbering some 300 men, intercepted the caravan near the wells of Badr. The Meccans, aware of the impending attack, gathered a larger army of around 1,000 men to defend the caravan and confront the Muslims. The battle began with a series of fiery duels, most of which were won by the Muslims. Then the Meccans charged their lines. Despite being outnumbered and ill-equipped, the Muslims had morale on their side. They achieved a decisive victory, killing around 70 Meccan soldiers and capturing 50 prisoners. Several prominent Meccan leaders were killed in the battle, significantly weakening the Meccan opposition. The Battle of Badr was a major boost for Muslims and demonstrated that they could successfully defend themselves against their enemies. It also established Muhammad as a formidable military leader and strategist. The victory at Badr allowed the Muslims to consolidate their power in Medina and gain valuable resources. But the Meccans were not beaten yet. They would be back next year, seeking revenge for their defeat at Badr. They gathered a larger force and attacked the Muslims near Mount Uhud. The Muslims again initially had the upper hand, but a tactical error led to a chaotic retreat and heavy losses. The battle ended inconclusively with both sides suffering casualties, but it served as a lesson for the Muslim community in maintaining discipline and unity. In 627 CE, the next great trial for Muslim forces would occur. The Meccans sought revenge again, but this time they were not alone. Alarmed by the growing strength of the Muslims, numerous other tribes joined forces with them. In addition, several discontent Jewish tribes from around Medina itself had formed alliances with the Meccans. This coalition marched on Medina with an army of 10,000. Prophet Muhammad, aware of the impending siege, sought counsel from his companions. A Persian convert, Salman al-Farsi, suggested digging a trench around the city's vulnerable areas to deter the enemy's advance. The Muslims worked tirelessly to dig the trench, which proved to be an effective defense strategy. The Meccan Jewish coalition proved unable to break through and settled in for a siege. A series of covert operations by the Muslims would cause the Meccan Jewish coalition's morale to wane. The Muslims also used diplomacy to cause division and further weaken their forces. The Meccan Jewish coalition forces eventually withdrew and the siege of Medina was lifted. The Battle of the Trench was a strategic victory for the Muslims. The successful defense of Medina further solidified their power in the region. In the aftermath, a truce was signed by Mecca and Medina, but it was broken only 2 years later. In response, Muhammad gathered a large army and marched towards Mecca. The city's defenses were weak, and many Meccans, recognizing the growing strength of the Muslims, chose not to resist. Muhammad entered the city peacefully and declared a general amnesty, sparing the lives of his most former adversaries. Thus Mecca, which would become the holiest site of Islam, came under Muslim rule. Shortly afterward, the final showdown would happen between those tribes who still resisted and the followers of Muhammad. The Muslim army of 12,000 met the coalition forces in the valley of Hunayn. The coalition employed ambush tactics and initially inflicted heavy losses on the Muslim forces. However, Muhammad managed to rally his troops, and the Muslims launched a counterattack. The coalition forces were eventually defeated, and the Muslims captured a significant amount of spoils, including livestock and prisoners. The Battle of Hunayn was a key turning point in early Islamic history. In the aftermath, many of the defeated tribes chose to embrace Islam and integrated into the growing Muslim community. In the next 2 years, Muhammad would continue to consolidate the Arabian Peninsula. Warfare played a crucial role in the establishment and expansion of the early Islamic State, allowing it to withstand external threats and consolidate power. Throughout these campaigns, Muhammad demonstrated his ability as a military leader and strategist. Finally, in 632 CE, Prophet Muhammad's time would come. One of the most famous legends of Islam tells of the Prophet's miraculous journey from Mecca to Jerusalem and his ascension to the heavens. In a single night, Muhammad is said to have travelled on a supernatural horse called Burak, met various prophets, and ultimately stood in the presence of God or Allah. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this little sip of fascinating history with your friends. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.